Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mark Moss Show, where we talk about, of course, each and every week, the decentralized revolution, talking about how the world of centralization is breaking apart, moving to a decentralized world. Of course, we look at it through the lens of politics, finance, and technology. I like to bring to you some, education pieces you can start to understand the world in better context, some latest breaking news headlines so you stay on top of what's going on, and of course, some interesting guests so you can learn from other people than having to listen to me all the time. And that's what I have in store for you today. I have somebody in the studio that I've been highly anticipating getting in the studio. I am talking about Dr. Mike Fuljenz. He is the president of Universal Coin and Bullion. I am a sound money advocate. I've been talking about inflation, what the Fed is doing, things like censorship of our money and all those things. And, of course, gold has been the solution to that for 5,000 years. So, Mike, I'm excited to dig into you. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. Just a privilege to be on your show, Mark.
Yeah, awesome. I've been talking about gold for a number of years now, for a long time. Obviously, I talk about Bitcoin as well, but really I think about it from a sound money standpoint. I was a gold bug. Really, after 2008 is when I kind of got caught up into this, and it was like after getting smashed like millions of other people in the 2008 crash, it was kind of like, what the heck happened? And then it was like Ron Paul leading the charge with, in the Fed. And then I started watching Mike Maloney and like, it's this fiat money system that's the problem. Like, we need to go back to a sound money system like gold. Gold's the answer. I'm curious, like, what was your path to gold? How long have you been around it, and why were you drawn to it like that?
Well, before gold, my grandfather gave me silver dollars for making A's on my report card in second grade. And at that time, the Treasury released hundreds of thousands of Morgan silver dollars, Peace silver dollars, brand new. And he'd take his dollars down to the bank, get a silver dollar, and brand new, and he'd bring it to me for my report card. Well, those $1 back there are worth $50 to $100 today, depending on the date and the condition. And that started me collecting. I bought my first gold coin at age 12, a $20 St. Gaudens, a $5 Indian. I mowed a bunch of yards at $5 each, as many of us did to earn extra money. Went down to the local coin shop, and $50 for a $20 gold piece would be over $2,000 today. And that $50 in cash would still be $50. Of course, it wouldn't be worth as much.
Yeah.
But that drew me to it. I enjoyed getting the coins. I learned about it, and I got very involved at helping local dealers at coin shows, and later taught counterfeit detection and grading for the American Numismatic Association, to law enforcement, to collectors, investors for 20 years in Colorado Springs.
Nice. Now, I'm curious, it seems, and I've seen lots of reports and polls that have been done, and just from my own kind of, my own investigation as well, it seems like most people, the average public, I hate to say it, but the average public is just not very informed, right? They might be a little ignorant and stupid, if we might even go that far. But, a lot of people just aren't even really aware that the dollar used to be backed by gold, or that the dollar isn't backed by gold anymore. They don't really even understand that, right? So I'm curious, what it's been like for you, on your education standpoint, trying to get people involved into gold when most people don't even seem to understand it or care.
Well, we're the official coin and bullion experts of the NRA. And of course, there they say the three precious metals of freedom are gold, silver, and lead.
Yeah.
And we handle two of the three and leave the lead to the other fine vendors in the NRA. But the educating people is why we write books. We put out newsletters. We've been fortunate enough to have them voted best in the industry by our Numismatic Leary Guild. And I always tell people, buy the book before you get the coin, so you can learn about it, get comfortable with it, and you should diversify with precious metals. The World Gold Council does all sorts of studies showing that a portfolio with 10 to 20% weight in precious metals performs better than one without. So it's something we educate people with the materials that I, with the help of others, write.
So that's diversifying some of your portfolio. So you take all your assets, your total investable net worth, and take a percentage of that and put it into gold.
Right. I would run from anybody who says put everything in my area. You might want some real estate, a little Bitcoin. You might want CDs. You might want a little bit of a bunch of investments that you think are good. If you know something about one and you feel really good with either your knowledge or the people you're working with, you might have a little heavy weighting. But I once showed a group of people. I got up on the top of a 5-floor parking garage, and they wanted to give me a seminar on what I'd advise, and I dropped a bunch of eggs in a basket from 5 stories up, and they broke. I said, "Don't put all your eggs in one basket." Corny, but made a point.
Yeah.
They called the nursing home across the street, called the police and the fire department. They all showed up. They thought I was a jumper.
Oh no, shoot. So tell me about investing into gold though, right? So what about diversifying into gold? So you have obviously lots of ways that you can get into gold, whether that be just straight bullion. Obviously there's coins, there's collectible coins, there's gold stocks, there's gold miners, et cetera. So how do you think through that?
Well, I deal with the physical gold, and I look at the premiums over spot gold price that you see on CNBC or other networks. And if gold, let's say, is at $2,000, a 1-ounce gold bullion coin from the U.S. Mint, the most popular one is the American Eagle. Reagan signed that series into law in 1986, and we've had them ever since. The American Eagle Gold Program, right now, I sell at about 3.5% over spot. Canadian Maple Leafs are around 3% over spot. But dealers pay a little more for the American Eagle, and they make up about 70% sold in the country. And why that's important to your listeners and your viewers is that you want something that dealers will pay a lot to buy when it comes time to sell. Some things like the Krugerrand, they pay under spot. So you might buy it a little cheaper, but you lose 2 to 3% when you go to resell it. And that's where you see someone knowledgeable to tell you, do you want a Canadian Maple Leaf? Do you want a U.S. Mint Eagle? What bullion coin or bar do you want? I tend to steer away from bars because it's tough for many dealers to tell if they're genuine or not. There are a lot of counterfeit bars coming out of China. I was with the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, under Trump. We're talking about all the counterfeits coming in and what they did under the Trump administration to limit it a little bit and how it's eased up under the Biden administration. And I'm on a national anti-counterfeiting task force, and I tell you, the law enforcement I know are struggling right now with some of the laxity of some of the goods coming in the country from China.
How could somebody know if they're getting counterfeit gold?
Well, the first step is to deal with someone who has too much going to do them wrong. Have they won awards? Are they on national boards? What expertise, credentials do they have? And then where do they source their product from? Is it directly from the mints, or are they getting it from elsewhere? But you're really at the mercy of trusting your dealer, because the average person out there doesn't know enough in general to tell if they've got a counterfeit product or not. I taught these classes for 20 years. I teach law enforcement on it. There's certain tests I can show you. A ring test, I put it on my finger and I ring it compared to real gold coins, and you get the sound, be it a silver or gold coin. We have electrical tests. But when you get to bars, you don't have quite that, you don't have that ability. And the test you do, they've been layering tungsten with gold to make fake bars. I was talking to NBC a few years ago on that, and the rash of tungsten-filled bars being sold in New York. Mm-hmm. So basically, know your dealer and know where he sources his products from.
Right. And so then typically also, if you just stay away from the bars and you stick with more with coins, then you probably have less risk of that, it sounds like. Right.
And there's more ways. The surface characteristics of the coins that we know, different tests that are true on coins are tougher to run on bars. Okay. Usually it doesn't mean you can't liquidate them. They just have to send them off to get assayed in many cases before they come back. The Chinese even counterfeit the holders the bars are in from the mints, and they do a pretty good job not just on the counterfeit product sealed in plastic, but the holders around them.
Now, when it comes to coins, obviously I understand there's the whole collectible coin, the numismatic coin side of things. Personally, for myself, I've never been a collector. I've never collected stamps or baseball cards, or I don't collect fine art or watches. I just don't collect anything. And I've sort of felt like they're, when you get into collecting Pokemon cards, I have a younger brother. He sells Pokemon cards online. He makes a lot of money doing that. But when you get into these collectibles, whether Pokemon cards or stamps or baseball cards or gold or whatever, you kind of have to have that inner industry knowledge to know which of those cards would be better than others. I would imagine you probably have to have the same. There's probably some inherent knowledge you need to have in the collectible gold or silver coin industry.
Well, yes, and you'd need to know you're expert, and then have something you have interest in. Again, buy the book before the coin. I have a gold guide out that's 38 pages. It was voted the best in the industry. And if you want to get materials, maybe not just from me, for some other fine dealers that are out there. I'm a member of the Professional Numismatist Guild, and publications put out by our members, which is the leading group, would be a good start. But there are a lot of fun areas to collect. Silver dollars, gold coins that are classical from 1933 back. I would tell, and I want them certified by either Professional Coin Grading Service or Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, the two leading authenticating services and grading services. I graded at PCGS and ANA, and I would tell people, learn about it, talk to your dealer about it. Many people collected state quarters when they were a kid. They collected all sorts of coins. I did.
Right.
And they want to get back into it.
Right. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's fun. I do have a collection of gold coins that are St. Gaudens, and they weren't too much over Sprott, and I collected them in a year series, so I kind of have them all. So it is fun if you can do that without getting too far out there. As we're talking about gold, it's been a great way to diversify your wealth and store your wealth over a long period of time. Another way that I've been able to do that is with real estate. You've been hearing me talk about on the show my friend Dutch Mendenhall. He's the co-founder and CEO of Rad Diversified. He's also the president of the Alternative Investment Association, sort of like what I like to talk about in alternative investments. He wrote a book called Money Shackles. And these money shackles are things that hold us back, and these are things in our mind. So this could be like the adage of go to school, get a good job, save for retirement. And he wrote a book, The Money Shackles, to help you get past that and really achieve your American dream. Now, he wrote the book. You can go ahead and get a copy of it. You can find it at therad.com. That's THERAD.com, therad.com. But if you want to see beyond Wall Street, see the future of alternative investments, see how it's no longer just available to the super rich, how you can tap into today, get the book from Dutch Mendenhall, therad.com. Now, one thing that I would say, I had asked you kind of a question about this education piece and getting people involved into it, but it seems like really more and more people are starting to wake up to it. I've seen some polls recently that people are actually saying it's one of their favorite long-term investments now. So we're starting to see that. It seems to be coming back to me. You've been around it for a long time. So I'm wondering if you see this resurgence. And if so, what would you attribute that to? Do you think like all these talks of inflation and debt ceiling debates and stuff like that is kind of pushing this attention back towards that?
Well, I would say one of the mottos we have in the precious metals business is gold is the bank that never fails. Whenever we have bank failures, saving and loan crisis, people wonder, where should I put my money? And they look at putting a little bit into something tangible and hard assets like gold. Again, a gold $20 gold piece in 1933 was $20. Now it's $2,000, up 100-fold. That $20 bill from 1933, what will that buy you today? But yet that $20 gold piece held its value and increased in that time. And you can take that back for, as you said, thousands of years to before Christ when it was money. So whenever we have uncertainty in the world, when we have banking crisis, war, or any of those things, a lot of people around the world globally, not just in the United States, flock to gold. And I think more and more, central banks in Singapore, China, we've had record central bank buying of gold in the last 10 years, 20 years, loading up on gold. And we're seeing more of the public in this country. As you get uncertainty, they're looking for other places to go. Alternative investments, as you talked about.
Yeah. You can see, over the last several years, I've used these charts many times in the past, but central bank buying has gone net short on treasuries. They're no longer stocking up on U.S. treasuries anymore. The fake money, which I think really got kicked into high gear after Russia had their FX reserve taken, and they went, oh, crap, what would we do? Well, maybe if we had gold. And so what we've seen from their balance sheets is net sellers of treasuries and now net buyers of gold. And to the point that you made, they're buying more gold than any time in history right now, which is pretty amazing. And if you think about it, if you look at how much actual physical gold is out there, look at the COMEX and so forth, you'll see that if a nation wanted to take their sovereign wealth reserves of whatever, $100 million and put that into bullion, like they can't just go get $100 million worth of gold. Like it's not just there for them. And I saw it today, I covered it earlier on another segment, but the BRICS nations, we've been hearing more and more about the BRICS nations rising up. And now they've said that their goal is to launch their gold-backed currency by the end of the summer. I don't know if you saw that, or what do you think that has an impact on all this?
Well, I think it'll create, you've got to back it with gold, at least a certain amount of gold. Your ETFs are backed dollar for dollar with gold if someone invests in an ETF, exchange traded fund. And I think anything that puts more gold there puts more demand on the market. I think long term, you're going to have ups and downs in this market as anything. But long term, we've seen gold going up from $250 in 2000 to almost $2,000 this year. So long term, it's outperformed the Dow, the S&P. You can pick different dates where one has done better than the other, but since 1970, since 2000, gold has outperformed the Dow, the S&P in a lot of places. It's worthy of, we say it has a negative beta. It goes up when a lot of other investments go down. So that's why the World Gold Council recommends a portion of your investments be in gold.
Yeah. What do you say about, really big, gold hit its high in 2011 at about 2000, and now here we are, 12 years later, and we're back up to 2000, but the central banks have increased the money supply by 50% in that same time period.
Well, I just think like anything else, you have cycles, and there are a lot of factors in play. How much is being sold into the market by central banks and other owners, what traders are doing. Sometimes they sell off to cover losses in other areas. But long term, the trend since 70, since 2000, since 2005 is upward. And I think that will continue. It has since forever.
Yeah. What about, do you think there's a lot of maybe manipulation or at least suppression in the price of gold, by the LBMA?
There have been lawsuits about that, about governments trying to manipulate gold, because gold is really a thermometer. It's a measure of how governments are doing. When gold's going up, it generally means currency is weaker. It has a direct correlation to the dollar dropping. Typically, and so when the dollar drops, that doesn't relate well on a country and an administration. And so administrations don't like to see gold going up and their currency going down and weakening generally. Once in a while, they want a little weakness to help with trade or stuff. But overall, they don't want to be the administration that cratered the dollar or cratered their currency.
Right. Destroyed the currency. Certainly not. Certainly not the Fed. They don't want to give up control over money for sure. And by having that dollar continue to lose value, that would certainly accelerate that. What about, you mentioned since 1970, obviously 1970 is the year before Nixon took us off the gold standard. Do you think that was a big catalyst for gold when that happened?
Oh, yeah. It was a huge catalyst. And, of course, it was part with wars, oil rising, and a lot of uncertainty rising up to 1980 by 850 from the official price of 35, and it really wasn't trading at that, to 850 by 1980. And so, that was a big part. I did want to bring one other thing up for your listeners. It's very important. I'm on the executive board of the National Coin and Bullion Association, and we've managed to get work on different states to make precious metals, rare coins and precious metals, sales tax free in a number of states. Right now we have some form of exemption in 41 out of the 50 states. And so working to get, we believe precious metals should be sales tax free. They're in IRAs, they are an investment, and we have worked continuously to get state by state. I helped get Texas coins and metals, precious metals, sales tax free in 2012.
So that means if I were to buy the gold from you, I wouldn't pay sales tax on the gold.
Correct, unless you're in one of the 9 states that does make us charge sales tax 8 to 9%. And on gold bullion, I make 1% to 2%, sometimes less if you buy volume. I don't want you to have to pay 8 to 9% in sales tax.
And that's that's a state thing, right?
Yeah, you should always buy from in a state. If they ship it into your state, that's the law, then they got to charge sales tax. So go physically and buy it in another state, have it shipped to a depository in a sales tax free on precious metals state, a depository in Delaware that doesn't have sales tax on anything, in Dallas that doesn't have sales tax in the state of Texas on precious metals. You can do that to avoid the sales tax, like shipping it in to a state that might have a sales tax.
That's a really good point. Especially if you're buying a considerable amount of gold, that sales tax could really hit you hard.
If you spend $100,000 on your gold investment, you don't want to spend $8,000 on sales tax if you could simply drive over a state line and buy it in a state that's sales tax free. So that would save your listeners a lot of money.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I mean, if gold would go up by 8%, that would be a good move. But here you are down 8% right off the bat. So now it's got to swing, 16% for you to get that money back. So,
and we're working on a few more states, Arkansas, Tennessee. We chomp away every couple of years when the legislatures meet. We show them the benefits, not a loss to the state, the benefits and why other states have done it of not taxing coins and precious metals.
what are the states that, is there only 9 states you said that don't have tax?
They do have tax.
Okay, so
41
which of those?
states. Now we have 5 like Delaware that has no sales tax on anything. We had nothing to do with our organizations with getting coins and metals tax free there because nothing is taxed. But like Texas and other states we've worked on across the country, state of Washington, getting them sales tax free on coins and precious metals. Some of them have partial exemptions. Most of them, like California, over 2,000 is exempt. Under 2,000, you've got to pay, I don't know, 8-9% or whatever it is. We have a formula in our computer. So partial exemptions exempt over a certain amount, except Louisiana, which over 1,000 is taxable, under 1,000 is not. They're kind of bass-backwards. So, but you have to know that, and we educate people on that, and also tell people legally, like in Louisiana, if they don't want to pay the tax, if they buy 100,000 in bullion and don't want to pay 8-9% tax, drive over 30 minutes to Texas where we are, buy it here. So Vermont, New Jersey, Maine, Kentucky, Wisconsin, New Mexico, Hawaii all have sales tax. Those residents should never have it delivered to their state when legally they can buy it or have it shipped to a state that doesn't charge sales tax.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I hadn't really thought about that. That's great, great advice. Now, what about? I said I wanted to ask you about 1933. So, 1933, FDR passed executive order and made owning gold illegal, seized all the gold that was in the banks, et cetera. And I don't believe you were able to own gold again until 1975, if I'm correct about that. Is that right? 1975?
I think it's 74, 75. I think 74, but it's same range.
Yeah.
What it was, let me just say this, it was a recall, and it was illegal to own except your jewelry. They weren't going to take your wife's wedding ring. They weren't going to take collectible coins with extra value, but you couldn't hoard 4 coins of the same date. People turned it over. They melted down a lot of the antique gold coins. One person did go to jail for violating the law, but not a lot of people, but the threat was there, and it wasn't a confiscation. Coin dealers who say it's a confiscation generally have had trouble with the government over using that language. I had to work with the FTC and our state attorney general where I helped write their consumer alerts to talk about this. Now, it wasn't pleasant. You got the going price of gold, $20 and change when you turned in that 1 ounce of gold. And a year later, they raised gold to $35. So you wouldn't feel very good. The government says, here, I'll give you $20 and you're going to go to jail if you don't turn it in. And right after you give it to me, I'm going to raise the price to $35. Well, people didn't like it, but that was a recall, the Gold Reserve Act of 1934. And that recall brought in a lot of gold, and that's what happened back then.
Yeah, I mean, they devalued it. I mean, it basically just took everybody's value. So you're saying they kind of had everybody turn it back in, and then you couldn't really invest into it. So I guess the average public wasn't really into it for quite a while, and then have started buying back into it. But when I do my research, I kind of had a big online disagreement with Ray Dalio, because Ray Dalio came out and put out a piece, and he said that. The reason why the governments would ban Bitcoin is the same reason they banned gold back in 1933, is that they don't want a competing form of money. And I said, well, that wasn't it. The reason why they banned gold back in 1933 is because they owed gold, right? They had, when the creation of the Fed started, they printed way too many paper gold certificates, and they owed the gold, so they needed the gold in the bank. So I'm like, I don't think they're going to ban it again like they did in 1933, because they don't owe gold anymore. Now they just owe dollars. I'm curious what your take is on that.
Well, over the years, they closed what they called the gold window because they were sending out most of our $20 gold pieces, what's called the Augustus St. Gaudens, $20 St. Gaudens, were made for balance of trade payments overseas, where other governments wanted gold and not paper dollars. And yes, we had to limit because we were running down our gold supplies in this country. And silver, they closed that, I think it was back in 68, where you could turn a silver certificate, and which was on all the paper notes, and get silver. So in 1966, Lyndon Baines Johnson, or it was 65, I think, Lyndon Baines Johnson said that silver would never be worth more than, I don't know, the silver coins from 1964 and before would be never worth more than face value. And if they started to get higher, they had a lot of silver and they'd knock the price down. Now you talk about suppression of price. Lyndon Baines Johnson was quoted as saying they would do that. Well, he was wrong, because that silver is worth 20 times face. Those 25, the quarter is worth $5 if it's 1964 and before. On my radio show for 20 years, and I've called in, people want to know what a coin's worth. The thing that was most worthwhile when they went through Grandpa's collection or what Grandma threw aside, they'd have $100 in silver dimes or quarters. Well, it didn't have to be a rare coin. Right now, the silver value is worth like 18 times face. So if you've got $100, you've got $1,800.
Wow.
And so anybody out there, if they have a Morgan silver dollar, if they have two silver half dollars, 1964 dated or before, it's worth at least 18 times the face value. And the Morgan dollar is even more.
Yeah. I like to think about it like, and I don't know the exact math here because it changes, but I would imagine in those pre-1964 coins, I don't know how much a gallon of gasoline was, but it was probably about 20 cents, 25 cents. And that same pre-64 quarter today will buy you a gallon of gas.
You can go through a lot of great comparisons of that. When I got married in 1979, been married 44 years. My wife's Baptist, I'm Catholic. We're the Labradoodle of couples. We're Bathlicks. And we went on our honeymoon, and there was gas rationing. We were glad we had a little car that got about 45 miles to the gallon, because we went to Astroworld, and there was nobody there, but you could only buy gas on certain days in 79. And our first house we bought, interest rates were up to 13% to buy that first house. We were very happy to get a first-time home buyer loan at like 11%.
Wow. Now, going back to the numismatic coins for a minute, for the collectible coins, the pre-ban coins, in that, to the point that you already made, they didn't confiscate jewelry and collectible coins. And so a lot of times people think that, well, as long as we stick with these collectible coins, then we'll be exempt if that were to ever happen again. Well, on top of that, they can also increase faster because of their collectible nature of them. Well, also, I believe they're not technically monetary instruments. So then it also changes like reporting requirements and like ability to transport them as well. Is that right?
Well, there's some slight benefits. On some gold bullion coins, you have broker reporting. If you sell so much, not on the American Eagle, but 25 or more sales of Krugerrands or Maple Leafs, we have to fill out a form.
But in and if I had like late 1800 coins, for example, right?
You still are required to get with your accountant, I would say. And if you make a profit on that or any other collectible art, there's reporting requirements.
Sure, there's reporting requirements. So like,
coin dealer. It's private.
Yeah, you have to pay taxes, cap gains taxes, but like but again, they would be protected under a collectible as opposed to
and they're portable. But what I would say is whatever laws were written for 1933 were written back then. They could write something different now to encompass other things. That's again like your wife's wedding ring, your jewelry, your statues, art. The public would be outraged if you want to take everything you've got that's collectible. So that's why they couldn't go that far with gold or other things. But new times, new facts can bring for new decisions, and you can't say forever there wouldn't be new laws made that might affect something.
Sure.
But I think you reduce the chances. It's like insurance. It lessens the chance that will happen.
Sure. Yeah, forever's a long time. We don't know. As you can tell by listening, understanding which gold and silver to buy can be tricky. You want to make sure you're buying from a reputable dealer. You want to make sure you're buying with good prices. And that's why I like working with Universal Coin and Bullion. Mike Fuljenz here, the president, wrote the consumer alert on gold coins for the Texas Attorney General. He knows something about it, and they have really good prices on gold and silver. As a matter of fact, he's given you an offer for my listeners to get the most popular gold bullion coin. It's the 1 ounce gold American Eagle coin. for his dealer cost of only 3.5% over spot price, plus giving you free shipping and his 30-page national award-winning gold guide. If you mention my name, Mark Moss, just give him a call, 1-800-UCB-GOLD. Again, that's 1-800-UCB-GOLD. Tell him Mark Moss sent you. Also, you can go online to universalcoin.com/Mark Moss. Again, universalcoin.com/Mark Moss to get that deal, the most popular gold bullion coin in the world, and the free gold guide that he's been talking about. You do not want to buy gold without it. So hit him up, universalcoin.com/Mark Moss. If you're just tuning in, you've been listening to the Mark Moss Show, talking about the oldest form of money that's been helping us weather these storms for thousands and thousands of years. Joined by Dr. Mike Fuljenz from Universal Coin and Bullion. Check them out. And that's what we got. That's what we got for you today. Thanks so much for listening.